What's up YouTube? Pete here from the Sunday Drive, and today we're going to be showing you how to install this ATOTO A6 Pro Android touchscreen head unit on this 2010 Jeep JK Wrangler. Now, what's special about this Wrangler is that it has the Infinity sound system, and for some reason, anytime you hear that, it usually makes things a lot more complicated. So we're going to show you how to install this because it's not as straightforward as you might think. So stay tuned. Alright, so let's start off with what comes in the box when you purchase the ATOTO A6 Pro. Now there are 4 different variations of the ATOTO A6, ranging from standard, premium, to pro, and then finally the pro version with gestures. Now this is the pro without gestures model. The lower 2 ATOTO A6 models do not have IPS displays like this does. Otherwise, they're pretty much identical and they're all awesome units. So, in the box, you obviously get the head unit. Also with the head unit are some accessories. In this case, you get a GPS antenna, a Wi-Fi antenna, a microphone for hands-free calling, a USB extension cords which you can run behind the dash into an accessible spot for you to connect USB devices, and obviously a harness that plugs into the back of the head unit and will allow you to connect to a harness in the vehicle. The device also comes with these standard brackets which are supposed to be universal, but in our case, we actually installed these Metra brackets that are fitted specifically for this vehicle. Now we'll have a link to these in the description below. Also included with these Metra brackets are these plastic pieces that actually fill the gap on the sides of the head unit, so it makes a nice clean finish. You get 2 different size plastic pieces to fill the gap depending on what kind of vehicle it is, so you'll have to figure that out when you get there. Now, since this Jeep is equipped with the Infinity sound system, there is another thing that you need to purchase for it to work, and that is this PAC C2R CHY4, that's a mouthful, module. And so what this does is it allows you to connect to the rear subwoofer and also turn on the amplifier for the vehicle, because the amplifier only turns on when it gets a CAN bus signal. So you need this to communicate with the amplifier and the rear subwoofer. We'll have a link to this in the description below as well. This took us a couple of attempts to find out that this would work properly, and I'll tell you why. Originally we purchased this Maestro CH1 and we thought that this would work. Unfortunately, this is not compatible with the ATOTO A6 Pro. It's only compatible with a few other specific head units. So if you're installing the ATOTO, don't get this. Included with the PAC unit is another harness. This will allow you to plug into the unit like so. And this big gray connector is actually what plugs directly into the Jeep. Finally, you're going to need to purchase this antenna adapter yourself. What it does is it converts from the Chrysler antenna plug to this standard antenna plug that fits in the back of all aftermarket head units. And since the owner of this vehicle wants to be able to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you're going to need to purchase this from ATOTO as well. This is the AC CPA A48, and what that does is it allows you to see your phone on this head unit, and it works really well. I've been using it in my Silverado over the last year, no issues, so I highly recommend it. Totally worth the $50 or so. Now we already have a video going through this head unit in detail. If you want to see that, go ahead and click on the link above or in the description below. Additionally, we also have a video showing how to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and how to use this device. So if you want to check that out, once again, click above or check out the description below. The first step to removing the head unit is to first pop off this top black plastic cover. So go ahead and grab a trim removal tool and start from the back. Now don't just pull this off because there is a wire that you need to disconnect. Just simply push on this connector and it should come out. Next, use a 7mm socket to remove these 2 top screws. Come down to the bottom and move the 4-wheel drive shift lever out of the way and slip a trim removal tool in through the top to pop this out. You'll see that there's 2 more 7mm screws at the bottom. Now we can start removing this trim piece from the top. It just clips in. With the trim piece out of the way, you can go ahead and remove the 4 7mm screws on each corner of this radio. It's a good idea at this point to disconnect the battery so that you can avoid any electrical issues. Now go ahead and remove the radio so you can disconnect the wires from the back. Alright, so now we can disconnect these 4 connections. They're very simple, just push down right in the middle. And these 2 are also simple, just push down on that little clip. Now the next step is to remove these 4 7mm screws near the air ducts so that we can move these big gray plastic trim pieces out of the way. These are quite flexible, so you can just move them off to the side without damaging anything. And the reason we move these out of the way is because originally there was this metal bracket sitting in the back of this cavity. There's 2 screws holding it on the top and 2 screws holding it in from the front. If you look down in this hole, you can see an alignment pin, and that's what the bracket sits on before you screw it down. Essentially, these brackets here that hold the back of the old radio stable, they're too narrow or close together for us to fit the new head unit because it hits it. It's not super difficult. There's no cutting required. You just have to remove those 4 screws and out this comes. Okay, so now it's time to solder the harness that comes with the radio to the harness that comes with this PAC adapter that allows you to connect to the Infinity CAN bus system. To solder this, we're going to need a soldering gun, some solder, and some soldering flux, some strippers. We have 2 different kinds here. This one's nice because it can just rip off the tip of the wire, or the shielding for the wire. And I like to cover all of my connections with some marine heat shrink. There's actually an adhesive inside of here that releases once you heat it up and shrink it, so it prevents any sort of moisture from getting inside of the connections. You're probably also going to want a lighter or a heat gun to shrink this shrink wrap. Also, before we get to soldering, I want to point something out. We're going to do something a little out of the ordinary with this setup. On the head unit side, we're going to plug in the front right and front left speaker wires, so these are the gray and the white ones, up to the purple and the green wires on the car side of the harness. The reason is because fading is done in the amplifier via the CAN bus system. The new head unit, the ATOTO, is not able to control the fading. So since the amplifier only takes in 2 signals, we're going to send the front signals to the amplifier. It's kind of a little hard to explain, but basically all you need to know is the white and the grays are going to go to the green and the purples on the car side. You're not going to use the rear speaker outputs on the ATOTO, and you're also not going to use the front speaker inputs on the car side of the harness. Also, a big disclaimer is you are able to use this harness with the pack even if you don't have an amplified car system, but you still need to connect this blue and white wire. So this blue and white wire is very important because it allows the amplifier to turn on, but even when it's not present in the car, the pack requires that that blue and white wire is connected. So let's get to soldering. Now it's time to come back into the car and finish installing the accessories such as the Wi-Fi antenna, the GPS antenna, and the USB cables. Also the microphone. So the first thing we're going to install is this Wi-Fi antenna. This is super easy and straightforward. It happens to fit right here on top. It's so slim that it allows it to clear when this top piece lays on top of it. Next we're going to run this GPS antenna. We're going to end up mounting it on the windshield in the middle down here. So to run the wire, luckily since it's a Jeep, the dash is stupid simple. So it looks like you're actually able to just fish it through by hand and then run this GPS antenna. So we have the Wi-Fi and the GPS installed. Now we need to run the USB cord and the microphone. Okay, so we're gonna run this microphone over near the left tweeter. Conveniently, it'll actually clip right onto the dash. Go ahead and run this wire the same way we ran the GPS wire.
First trying the trial.
All right, now we have the remote USB connections. So we're gonna go ahead and run that down the middle and all the way down here near the shifter and the change tray for easy accessibility, so that way the passenger or the driver can get to it. Go ahead and run this behind this plastic bracket around the ventilation and just pull it all the way down, and there should be enough of a gap for this to clear. So once you have all those wires run, start plugging them into the head unit. Plug this main harness into the back of the radio. Next up, we'll plug in the GPS. Now we'll plug in the Wi-Fi. Next, we'll plug in the USB cables. On the far left, plug in the microphone. And finally, we'll plug in the antenna. So that goes into the antenna hole, and then you're going to plug the adapter into the white plug. We'll have a link to this adapter in the description of the video. It was only like $7. On the car side of the harness, here we have this 22-pin plug. All you need to do is plug in the female, and that clips in. And if you notice, there's two connections that we're not using from the factory setup. So now we're going to install these side spacers to fill the gaps on the dash. So make sure that the beveled edge is on the inside towards the radio, and then use these very tiny and aggressive screws and just go ahead and screw that in. Install your top two screws, and now install your bottom two screws for this centerpiece. Now hopefully the USB wires will fit behind this panel. And look at that, there they are. There they are, ladies and gentlemen, and you can read the tags. Easy connection and quick charge, so we're living large. Finally, go ahead and plug this in. This is for the, we believe, the compass. And there we go. Voila. This car is now equipped with an Android touchscreen head unit that can run apps like Google Maps, Gmail. Why are you checking your email while driving? Nobody knows. Torque, which is really cool, so you can actually install the Bluetooth module that plugs into your OBD2 plug, and it'll connect to this, and you can watch in real time your vehicle diagnostics and tachometer and all those other cool things that Torque offers. You have your radio, DVR if you want to install a front camera, which I have in my truck, so if you want to know how that works and how the video quality looks, be sure to check that out. There's a link in the video above and also in the description below. And yeah, so you can make phone calls and everything. So there you go. That is how you install the ATOTO A6 Pro in a Jeep Wrangler with the Headache Infinity system.